While partying, I left for an hour with a friend of mine, but he got suspicious and tracked me down. Hey, people of Reddit, I am here just like everyone else to share my story. I just wanted to pour my heart out to something that had happened recently, which turned my life upside down. I am still in a bit of shock, as it is hard to digest what recently happened and how my life took such a drastic turn. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but I know that sharing my experience can help me heal and possibly even inspire others going through similar situations. Thank you for listening and providing a platform for me to express myself. My name is Lily, age 31, married to Ben, age 27. Most of my friends assumed that I had scored a trophy husband who was both young and handsome. It was true to a certain extent. Ben was my way of showing everyone that I still could attract younger men towards me and make them follow me around. Ben was like that small puppy who would follow you around everywhere and always need instructions to know what to do. I really loved the fact that I could control him and make him do what I wanted. Despite the initial excitement of having a younger husband, I soon realized that our age difference brought challenges in terms of maturity and life goals. However, I was determined to make our relationship work and prove that age is just a number when it comes to love. It had been 2 years that we had been married, and Ben was still clueless about most of the things in our life. It was exhausting to always give him detailed directions every time I wanted him to do something. It was fun at first, but as time went on, it was becoming more and more tiring. How many times do I have to show him how to do laundry or use the dishwasher the right way? I could not expect him to get anything done when I was away and always come home to some or the other mess that he had created trying to do something. It felt like I was constantly babysitting him, and it was starting to take a toll on our relationship. I knew something had to change before it became too much to handle. I was having enough of Ben and his immature behavior. I knew that it was a problem since the time we were dating, but it was getting on my nerves now. Even tiny things that he did were making me super irritated. I knew that we looked great as a couple on the outside, but deep inside my heart, I knew that I was getting tired of him. He no longer seemed cute to me, and the things he did only enraged me. I decided it was time to have a serious conversation with him about our relationship and how his behavior was affecting me. It was clear that we needed to address these issues before they escalated further and caused more strain on our relationship. I had a conversation with Ben, and as expected, it was of no use as he never took anything seriously. He said that since I was such an OCD person, I could not see the efforts that he put into doing things, even if he did not know how to do them. He just repeated what he always said, that effort is what matters. The intention is bigger than the result. I was truly fed up with his nonsense from a point of view, which helped me in no way. He never realized that his efforts would just increase the amount of work I would have to do, coming home after a tiring day at work. I tried to explain to him that his efforts were actually causing me more stress and work, but he just couldn't understand. It was frustrating trying to communicate with someone who refused to see things from my perspective. It was a week after we had this conversation where I realized that I was a fool to try to make him understand. We went to a party where we were celebrating my promotion. I had my entire girl gang with me, along with a few friends and colleagues to join me in my success. I decided to forget all the tension between Ben and I and enjoy the night together. We ordered lots of food and drinks and decided to take over the dance floor. As the night went on, I found myself laughing and having a great time with my friends, feeling grateful for their support. It was a much-needed break from the stress of trying to make someone see things from my perspective. One of my girlfriends had invited my ex-boyfriend Daniel to the party, which was something I had not expected. It was nice running into him after so long. All those old memories flooded my mind. The drinks were making me tipsy, and seeing him when things were not great between me and Ben was making me look back and imagine how it would be if we had not broken up. I knew that thinking all this was only going to mess my mind, but as we started downing drinks, my mind kept on imagining scenarios of what it could have been if we were together. I tried to push those thoughts aside and focus on enjoying the party, but deep down, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right decision in breaking up with him. The nostalgia was overwhelming, but I knew that dwelling on the past wouldn't change anything. It was as if Daniel had sensed what was going on in my head. He asked me if I was happy and everything was fine in my life. I lied to him that I was having the best time of my life. He could see my lies through my teeth and just gave me a knowing smile. I could tell he saw right through me, but I wasn't ready to open up about what was really going on. I knew I had to deal with my own feelings before I could share them with anyone else. I changed the topic and dragged him to the dance floor. I wanted to forget everything and let myself loose. I was trying to find Ben, who was busy at the bar having shots with his friends. As the music blared and the lights flashed, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. I decided to embrace the moment and enjoy the night without any inhibitions. I was a little upset as I wanted Ben to dance with me and also show Daniel that I was actually happy in my married life. I at least wanted to keep up the facade of a perfectly married life. However, Ben seemed more interested in socializing with other guests, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. I decided to put on a smile and continue mingling, hoping that Daniel would take notice of my efforts to appear content. Daniel could see all this and whispered in my ear that he could get me out of here if I wanted. I told him that I was fine, and we started dancing. He held me so close to himself that I felt a tingle and butterflies in my stomach. As we danced, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation and excitement at the prospect of being with someone who truly appreciated me. At that moment, I knew that I deserved more than just a facade of happiness in my marriage. We started drinking and dancing. My close dance with Daniel started escalating to new levels. I knew that Daniel was enjoying the close proximity that we were sharing. As the night went on, Ben's absence from the dance floor became more noticeable. Eventually, I found myself completely lost in the moment with Daniel, forgetting about Ben altogether. Daniel suggested that we make the most of our time together and gave me a naughty smile. We slipped from the party and went to the parking lot. We got into his car and started making out. It was as if all our old memories rushed back all at once. The passion between us was undeniable, and we both knew we were about to rekindle something special. As the intensity of the moment grew, we lost ourselves in each other's embrace, savoring every second of our reunion. Ben tracked me down using my phone and caught Daniel and me red-handed, almost naked, and humping each other. It looked like the scene from Titanic with the steam on the car window when we heard a knock. I raised my head to see who it was and was shocked to see Ben standing outside. I quickly got off Daniel and pulled up my bra to cover myself. Ben's face turned red with anger as he stared at us from the window. I knew there was no way to explain or justify what he had just witnessed. I quickly was trying to dress myself and cover myself when Ben opened the door and pulled me outside. He held my hand so tight that I could feel my circulation stop. Daniel also came out when Ben started screaming at us both. The crowd started gathering around to witness what was happening. Ben called our friends and described what he saw. Daniel tried to calm Ben down, but his anger only seemed to escalate. I could feel the tension rising as the situation continued to unfold in front of our friends and strangers alike. Ben started his rant that he married me being fully aware that I was much older than him. Many of his friends and family were against it, but he still went ahead with it as he was confident of his love and fully trusted me. Here I was not only breaking his trust, but all proving everyone in his life to be right about me. He said that when the entire world was against our relationship, he was the one who fought for it, knowing that I would never betray him. I could see the hurt and disappointment in his eyes as he spoke, and I knew that I had truly let him down in the worst way possible. Despite his unwavering support and belief in our love, I had shattered it all with my actions. Now, with my betrayal, he felt not only heartbroken, but also foolish for defending our relationship. The weight of his disappointment and hurt was palpable in his words as he expressed his feelings of betrayal and regret. I could see everyone looking at me with questioning eyes and with pity for Ben. I could not take it any longer, so I burst out telling Ben what I had been feeling all this while. I told him that I was tired of babysitting him every day. It was my biggest mistake to have married him. I feel like I am trapped with a man-child who cannot function without instructions. I explained that I needed a partner, not a dependent, and that I deserved to be with someone who could take care of themselves. Ben looked shocked, but I knew it was time to be honest about my feelings and needs in the relationship. Ben laughed at my accusations and told me that he acted like a child because I found it cute. I loved the fact that he always followed my directions and did things that I liked. He said that even if he did not like to do something, he would still go ahead and do it for my sake because he loved me. He also added that there were many girls who would hit on him even after knowing that he was married, but he always made sure to maintain distance and let them know that he was taken. It was not like he did not have any opportunities to cheat on me, but he always valued our relationship and trust that I had in him to not overstep his boundaries. I decided that there was no point in wasting my energy in trying to make things work with Ben. Ben had been accusing me of all sorts of things that I was completely unaware of. I mean, if he ever had issues with me or felt like I was suppressing him in any way, then he should at least have raised his concerns. By this point, it felt like he was trying to gain all the sympathy that he could from the bystanders, as there was nothing that he could say in his defense. I understood that we would never be able to understand each other, so I left with Daniel. I realized that sometimes it's better to let go of toxic relationships and move on to find someone who truly appreciates and understands me. With Daniel, I felt a sense of peace and understanding that I never experienced with Ben. I realized that communication and trust were lacking in my relationship with Ben, and it was best to move on. So the next morning, I packed my things and left the place I lived with Ben and moved to Daniel's. Daniel seemed to offer a fresh start and a chance for a healthier connection. The next day, when I walked into my office, I could see everyone whispering and talking about me being caught red-handed with my ex-boyfriend by my husband making out in the car. Their eyes questioned me about my promotion. I knew that most people now were sure that I got promoted not because of my talent, but by sleeping with my bosses. I knew that I had lost my reputation at work, and no one was going to take me seriously. I felt a wave of embarrassment and shame wash over me as I realized the impact of the rumors on my professional credibility. Despite knowing the truth, I was faced with the challenge of rebuilding trust and proving myself all over again in the workplace. Daniel stayed in a studio apartment, which was not an ideal place for me. Now that I had made my point of staying with him, I decided to adjust myself for a while and then figure things out as time went by. However, Daniel never adjusted and made me comfortable. We had great sex, but that was all. He never put things in place nor helped with household chores. It was worse than living with Ben. I realized that our relationship was not sustainable if he wasn't willing to make an effort to create a comfortable living environment for both of us. Despite the great sex, I knew I deserved more than just physical satisfaction in a relationship. I tried to talk to Daniel about it, but he just dismissed my concerns, stating that he was always like this and would prefer to be the same. He added that I was the one who insisted on staying with him and imposed myself on him. He liked the way he was living before me and would continue to do the same. Daniel's response made me realize that perhaps I was the one who needed to reassess my expectations and boundaries in the relationship. It became clear that we had different perspectives on personal growth and change. I realized that Daniel's unwillingness to change was a major roadblock in our relationship. It became clear that we had different priorities and values that were not aligning. It was clear to me that my decision of choosing Daniel over Ben was proving to be wrong in just a few days. I know that I was in the wrong, but I believe that Ben was the one who dragged me to feel this way. I deserve to feel free and happy and not always overwhelmed thinking about what I would be coming home to. Recently, Ben had increased the amount of stress in my life, and making out with Daniel had somewhere helped me release that stress. I know it would not make sense to most of you, but I felt like I deserved a break from Ben. I understand that my actions were not the best way to handle the situation, but I needed a temporary escape from the stress Ben was causing me. After spending some time with Daniel, I have realized that Ben was the only one who happily dealt with my tantrums. I guess I was so engrossed in my own self that I forgot all the good qualities that had attracted me towards him. I now see that I need to communicate better with Ben and work through our issues together. It's important for me to appreciate and acknowledge his positive qualities rather than focusing solely on the negative aspects of our relationship. Ultimately, I realized that taking a break from Ben was not the solution, and I am committed to improving our relationship moving forward. Update. Thank you all for your overwhelming support. There were so many of you out there who could totally relate with me spending my life with a man-child. I have read most of your suggestions and decided to use a few of those tips to try and reconcile with Ben. I appreciate the empathy and understanding you have shown me during this difficult time. Your advice has given me hope that there may be a way to work through our differences and find common ground with Ben. I knew that Ben had been loyal to me no matter what. He always appreciated the things I did for him and never once stopped me from doing the things that I liked. I realized his worth after reconciling with Daniel why I liked Ben and wanted to marry him. I had forgotten the reason for it, but now I knew Ben's worth and wanted him back in my life. I was ready to do anything to have him back. I planned to reach out to Ben and try and reconcile with him. I knew that it would not be easy, but I had to try. There was no way I was going to spend some more time with Daniel and watching sports with his idiotic friends over the weekend. I knew that addressing the issues with Ben would be uncomfortable, but I was willing to put in the effort to mend our relationship. Spending time with Daniel and his friends was not fulfilling for me, and I needed to prioritize resolving things with Ben instead. I went to the house shared by Ben and me. I waited for him to get home as he had blocked me so I could not reach him. I knew the code, so I got in and cleaned the entire house. Everything was such a mess, so I tried my best to tidy as much as I could till I returned home. I wanted to show him that I cared about our relationship and was willing to put in the effort to revive it. Hopefully, he would appreciate the gesture, and we could have a conversation about whatever transpired between us. As I finished cleaning, I wrote a note expressing my feelings and apologizing for any misunderstandings. I hoped that this small act of kindness would open the door to communication and understanding between us. When Ben came home, he was surprised to see me, and also the fact that I made an attempt to clean everything. He looked at me with a disgusted expression on his face, as if questioning my presence. I gave him the note and asked him to read it before he began to say anything. I had written a heartfelt apology asking him to forget everything and start afresh in a positive way. I explained to him that I realized my mistakes and was willing to make things right. Ben's expression softened as he read the note, and he eventually smiled. I expected that he was willing to give me another chance, but his expression turned into a sarcastic grin. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach as I realized that my apology may not have been enough to repair our relationship. Ben's sarcastic grin made me question if forgiveness was truly possible between us. "I see you finally come to your senses," he said, his tone still mocking. "But actions speak louder than words, so we'll see if you're really serious about changing." I nodded, determined to prove myself and earn back his trust. He told me that he would forgive me if I did everything he asked me to, so that he knows that I really mean what I was saying. I told him that I now understood his value and wanted him in my life no matter what. He told me to give him some time so that he could clear his head and see what would make him move past this debacle of mine and be willing to take me back. I assured him that I would patiently wait for his decision and would do whatever it takes to earn back his trust. I promised to show him through my actions that I'm truly committed to making things right between us. After 2 days, Ben called me and asked me to come home. I was glad that I did not have to stay with Daniel anymore, and that I could go back to my clean, neat, and organized home. I was surprised by what I saw when I reached home. The house was a mess, but that was not something that was as shocking as seeing Ben with his ex-girlfriends. He said that he had called all of them over so that we could get even. I was not quite catching where this was going. Ben told me that he would make out with each of his ex-girlfriends one day at a time, and that I should not make a fuss about it. He said that this was the only way that he would be willing to make things equal between us. I was taken aback by his proposal and felt disrespected. It was clear that Ben's idea of getting even was not something I was comfortable with, and I knew it was time to swallow my pride and agree to it if I wanted to save our relationship. I told him that I just made out with one of my ex-boyfriends, so it was only fair that he made out with just one of his ex-girlfriends. I still could not believe that I was agreeing to something this bizarre, but I knew that I brought it upon myself, so I had no other choice. He laughed and told me that I was in no position to make observations or give suggestions. I was the one apologizing, and he would be the one making the terms for forgiveness. I realized then that he was not taking my feelings into consideration and was trying to assert his dominance in the situation. It made me question if this relationship was truly healthy for me. I still agreed to it, thinking that it would just be a one-time slip-up, and then I would never let him run over me ever again. Day 1 was when I saw that Ben was being too sweet to one of his girlfriends. They were having lunch together while she was sitting on his lap. He was feeding her with his own hands. I could puke looking at them being so cozy and comfortable with each other. I was somewhere expecting Ben to push her off him when he saw me, but he pulled her much closer to him. He even started kissing her while his entire gaze was on me. I felt a mix of shock and anger, realizing that Ben's behavior was far beyond what I had anticipated. It was clear that he had an intention of making sure that I get jealous. I reminded myself that this was my punishment and that I need to be patient. I acted as if it was not affecting me at all. Deep down, I knew that Ben's actions were meant to hurt me, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Instead, I maintained my composure and resolved to not let his behavior get to me. At night, Ben made his way into our bedroom with the same girlfriend. I was made to stay in one of the guest rooms in my own house. I was feeling belittled at every step in every situation, but I knew that reacting right now would only ruin things between me and Ben. All I had to do was stay patient for 3 days, and then things would go back to being normal. I would have my life back with Ben, and we would be the picture-perfect couple, like we always were. I reminded myself that this was just a temporary situation, and that my relationship with Ben was worth the wait. I focused on staying positive and looking forward to when things would return to normal. The next 2 days were again the same thing with other girls that made my blood boil. I took deep breaths and calmed myself down, reminding me to stay patient and look at the bigger picture. I knew that Ben was doing all of this so that he could get on my nerves and make me lose my cool. I was determined not to give him that opportunity and make sure I proved to him that I was genuinely looking for forgiveness. I focused on maintaining my composure and not letting his actions affect me. I wanted to show him that I was capable of rising above his attempts to provoke me and remain true to my goal of seeking forgiveness. After all his girlfriends left, I felt a sense of relief as I knew that it was now our time to bond and rekindle our relationship. I sat at the breakfast table waiting for him to join me. I brewed his coffee the way he liked and waited for him to say that he had forgiven me and now we could start over. I was smiling on the inside as I was proud of myself for keeping my cool and being a civilized human all this time when he was trying to provoke me. When he did not say anything, I decided to take charge and initiate the conversation. I told him that maybe we could start off by going away for the weekend. He looked at me with a puzzled expression. He started laughing like a maniac and said that there was no we. I wanted forgiveness, and all he was doing was just playing along to see when I would get riled up from his actions. He had no intention of forgiving me from the very beginning. He just wanted me to see and experience how it feels to see someone you love be intimate with someone else. His laughter turned into a sinister smirk as he revealed his true intentions, leaving me feeling betrayed and manipulated. It was then that I realized that I was being played by him. He continued that he wanted to make sure that I had my hopes up all these days, and then was shocked to see the expression on my face. He was having a really good time looking at me and fooling around with his girlfriends and me being all patient trying to suppress my anger. I did not feel this hurt ever in my life. I was even unable to form a sentence, and my eyes started getting wet on their own. I realized in that moment that his intentions were never genuine and I was just a pawn in his game of manipulation. It was a painful realization. He said that he felt the same pain when he saw me with Daniel. At least he warned me about what he was going to do, and I was prepared for what I was going to witness. I had never seen this dark side of Ben ever in my life. I knew that there was no point in trying to beg him to give me another chance. It was clear that after playing with me and my emotions all these days, Ben had decided to move on from me. I wiped my tears and stood up trying to process what just happened. Ben asked me to pack up all my stuff and leave as soon as possible. He said that he had seen enough of my face in the past few days and did not want to see me anymore ever in his life. As I gathered my belongings, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and anger towards Ben. It was a painful realization that our relationship had come to such an abrupt end. Nevertheless, I knew that I had to accept his decision and move forward with my life. I grabbed my stuff and started walking out of the door. All the events in the past few days started replaying in my head. I could not believe that I even started planning out our life together after Ben's forgiveness. I knew that I would only be laughed at both at work and by Daniel. I was so confident when I walked out of Daniel's house that I would never be going there again. Now I had no place to go. The weight of my decisions felt heavier with each step I took away from Daniel's house. It was clear that I needed to find a new path forward, one that didn't involve relying on someone else for my happiness. I'm writing this post at the metro station with all my stuff as I have nowhere to go. I do not know what to do going forward. My life looks like a dark tunnel with no light at the end. Maybe I should not have let myself lose with Daniel. My life started taking a downward spiral after I was caught with Daniel. I regret meeting Daniel that day and getting carried away without thinking of the consequences. However unhappy I was in my marriage with Ben, I should have not let myself lose. I realized that my actions with Daniel had not only jeopardized my marriage, but also my career and reputation. When I reflect back, what Ben did next was something I was not expecting. I was under the assumption that Ben would forgive me for everything that I did. I always thought that I had the upper hand in our marriage, but turns out I was living in my own bubble. Ben was just trying to adjust and make the compromises in our marriage. I was always the one calling the shots, so I never expected him to speak up for himself. Maybe that was the reason I did not hesitate even once to go to the parking lot and make out with Daniel. I had such high expectations from Ben in our relationship, but I never once tried to adjust or go out of the way to do something that made Ben happy. To everyone out there reading this, I know that I made mistakes, or rather blunders. I even tried to make amends and ask for forgiveness, but not everything happens as per our expectations or our plans. I now realize that I ruined my own marriage with my own hands. I now have nowhere to go. I left behind such a loving husband who practically worshipped the floor that I walked on. One tiny slip, and everything that I had and was proud of vanished just like that. I wish I could turn back time and make things right, but all I can do now is learn from my mistakes and try to move forward. It's a painful lesson, but one that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I want anyone reading this to learn from my mistakes and not repeat them. Cherish what you have and don't slip up even if you are tempted to. Thank you all for taking time to read through my story and be a part of my journey. I am very grateful to all of you for being kind and being there for me.